I didn't plan to notice it that night, but once I did, I couldn't stop. It was small things at first. The way my dad poured my sister's drink before sitting down, like she couldn't reach the bottle herself. The way he asked her about her week. Really asked, leaning in, nodding, while my answer got distracted. As he checked his phone, none of it was new. That was the part that made it heavier. It was familiar enough to feel normal, until it didn't. I had just transferred rent for her apartment that morning. Not the first time, not even the fifth. It had quietly become my responsibility somewhere along the way, though no one had ever formally said it out loud. Just until she gets back on her feet, my dad used to say, but until stretched, and then disappeared. Dinner moved along in that careful, polite way families use when they're avoiding something they can all feel sitting at the table. My sister was talking about switching jobs again. Something about toxic management, something about needing space to figure things out. Dad nodded like it was wisdom. I kept eating. At some point the conversation shifted, subtly, but deliberately. It always did. "Well," he said, setting his fork down, "not everyone has the luxury of drifting around." It was aimed at me but indirect enough to pretend otherwise. I looked up anyway. "I'm not drifting." He gave a small laugh, not amused, dismissive. "You think you're not, but you're detached, self-focused." He gestured vaguely with his hand, like he didn't need specifics. "You don't show up for people the way you should." The room didn't react. That was the reaction. I felt something tighten, not sudden anger, just recognition. Like hearing a line you've been rehearsing your whole life without knowing it. "I show up," I said, quieter than I expected. He shook his head, already moving past it. "Your sister," he continued, turning slightly toward her. "She struggles, sure, but she cares. She tries. She's better with people, better with family." There it was, not new, just finally said plainly. "You," he added, almost as an afterthought, "you've always been a bit selfish." I laughed. It slipped out before I could stop it. Not loud, not dramatic, just sharp enough to break the rhythm of the room. Everyone looked at me like I'd done something inappropriate, which, I guess, I had. "What's funny?" he asked. I shook my head once, still half smiling, though it didn't feel like a smile. "Nothing. It's just interesting." "Interesting," he repeated, already irritated. I set my fork down. "Yeah," I said. "Because I paid her rent this morning." No one spoke. It wasn't dramatic. No raised voice, no emphasis, just a fact placed on the table like anything else. My sister blinked, like she hadn't expected it to be said out loud. My dad's expression didn't change immediately, just paused like he was deciding what it meant. "That's different," he said finally. "Is it?" "Yes," he said, more firmly now. "That's helping family. That's what you should do." I nodded slowly. "Right, so when I do it, it's expected. But I'm still selfish." "That's not what I said." "It is," I said, still calm. "You just don't like how it sounds when it's complete." My sister shifted in her seat. Not defensive, not apologetic. Just uncomfortable. Dad leaned back slightly, his tone sharpening. "You're making this into something it's not." "No," I said. "I think I'm just not smoothing it over anymore." Another silence. Thicker this time. Then I added, almost casually, "Nice. Then I won't pay for her rent." That was the moment everything stopped pretending. It wasn't anger that followed, it was calculation. My dad sat up straighter. Not louder, just more focused. "You don't mean that." I didn't answer right away. "I think I do." My sister finally spoke. "You're serious?" I looked at her. Really looked, maybe for the first time in a while. "I don't know," I said. "I guess I'm figuring that out." Dad exhaled sharply, like he was about to reassert control, to reset the narrative back into something familiar, but before he could, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, irritation still visible, but something in his expression shifted as he read. "Hold on," he muttered. Standing up and stepping away from the table, we could still hear him. Not the words clearly at first, just the tone, measured, then slightly strained. "No, that shouldn't be." A pause. What do you mean delayed? Another pause. Longer. When he came back, he wasn't angry anymore. He was thinking. They've pushed my payment back, he said, almost to himself. 2 weeks, maybe more. No one responded immediately. He sat down slowly, the earlier certainty gone from his posture. The room rearranged itself around that information without anyone moving. How much is her rent? He asked, not looking at me this time. My sister answered quietly. He nodded once. Okay. That was all. No speech, no correction, no attempt to reframe anything, just a quiet acknowledgement that the situation was no longer abstract, no longer about values or character, just numbers. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. Dinner didn't recover. It just ended. Plates half finished, conversations unfinished in a different way. When I stood to leave, no one stopped me. Not out of anger, just uncertainty. Outside, the air felt colder than it should have. I sat in my car for a while before starting it, not replaying the argument, not planning what came next, just noticing the absence of something I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. Inside, they would figure it out. Or they wouldn't. Either way, it wouldn't be quiet anymore. And for the first time, I didn't feel responsible for filling that silence.